I'm Kelsey, and this is Tanay Aurora. He's a freshman here at Clemson from Greenville, South Carolina, and today he is going to read my poem. So today, what I'm going to get you to do is go ahead and read my poem, and then I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about it. Is that okay?
Right.
All right, let's
So,
do it.
can I see the hand that you write with?
All right. Well, what's the significance of being a hand you write with?
You normally want to read the hand that is more dominant, and the one that you write with is the more dominant hand. The other hand that represents basically the type of life you want, and the dominant hand represents the type of the life you have. So when you're reading a person's poem, there are three major lines that appear in a person's poem. They're the lifeline, the heart line, and the headline. This here is the lifeline. If you look at the lifeline, there are some common myths about the lifeline. It's like a short lifeline means that you're going to have a really short life, and a long lifeline means that you're going to have a long life. That's actually not true. It depends on how strong of a lifeline you have, and your lifeline will basically give you a general path of what are your difficulties and what are your achievements that you might achieve in your life. So if we look at your lifeline, it starts and it has a lot of breaks in the beginning. And breaks are technically not a good thing, because a break is when you have an emotional period in your life where you have something that is life-altering. And since it is in the beginning of your lifeline, which makes sense because you, like as a person, you do not have much control of your life as a child, and that basically represents in almost everybody's childhood life. Now, if you take a ruler and you draw a line from between these two lines and all the way to wherever it intersects your lifeline, that represents your 18th birthday. So anything after that is what you basically want to look at. Mm-hmm. And looking at the lifeline, there's not any major breaks or basically anything that is bad or that we consider bad.
Hey.
So yeah, now if we go to the next line, which is the heart line. Mm-hmm. Now this represents the type of like how you deal with emotion, how you let emotions out, and how do you deal in very emotional situations. Now, according to this, you're a fairly calm person, but if you see this lifeline and the lifeline and the heart line kind of intersects in the beginning, mm-hmm. and that represents that your early childhood years were very driven by your emotions, and which is again it's more common in females than in males because females are more emotional or more expressive than males. By looking at this is that you're free about your emotions, and you don't really mind telling people how it is. Mm-hmm. And but there is a kind of a fork right in one of these corners of your lifeline, mm-hmm. and that basically means that you basically give the person as it is. If you don't like a situation, you let the person know. So you're very direct, and that's represented here. Now, if we move on to your last major line, this is called your headline. And this is how you take knowledge and how you let go of knowledge. So if we look, there's multiple lines here, and there are multiple breaks. This means that you're you like getting information, mm-hmm. but you also like giving out information, and even if the person doesn't want it. And again, there's a fork on one of these sides that again represents that you'll give out the information, not caring about if the person really wants it. You just want to be heard, basically. Now, palm reading is more than just looking at the lines in your hand. It's just looking at the whole hand itself. So one of the most common ways to tell the person's character is if you look at the angle that it makes, or you have to look at the thumb and what kind of angle it makes compared to your hand. The farther away it is from your palm, the more selfless person you are. You'll just give everything to anybody who asks. And the closer to your palm your thumb is, the more selfish person you are. So you basically just care about yourself. If you look at your thumb, it's in a relaxed position. It's about a 45-degree angle, which is a good balance, and that's a really good balance to have. Most people have a little towards their palm because, I mean, most people are a bit selfish, and that's, I mean, in human nature, so that's good.
Makes sense.
Now, I want you to turn your hand around. The first thing you need to look at is your fingernails. There's a thing called a moon that could be represented in your fingernails, and a moon is basically a white arc in the very beginning of here. And if you have an arc, the bigger the arc it is, the more prone to diseases, and like you get sick really easily. The bigger it is, and the wider it is how when you do get sick, how much or how intense do you get sick. You don't really have a moon in any of your fingers, which is a good thing.
Yay.
So you generally don't get sick.
Okay.
But there is a very little white part here, and it's really white. So it's just that when you do get sick, it's really bad. Now I want you to close your hand like this. Do you see? It's kind of uneven, and it's because of this right here.
Okay.
This represents that you being a leader, because if it was smooth, you would be more of you go with the flow. You're not like that. You like being the leader. If you're not the leader, you will give basically a lot of your input to the person, and you're basically a backseat driver if you're not driving. And that's a very small description of palm reading that I just did.
Okay, awesome. That was great. Okay, so I just have a couple questions for you. Okay, so how did palmistry come to be?
Palmistry, there are actually two different theories. The one that I'm familiar with is the Eastern one, and this is that since man is a very curious person, people started to wonder what these lines mean, and over 1,000 or over more than 1,000-year period, information was gathered to basically if this curve in the line was dedicated to a certain type of characteristic that a person does. So over a period of time, that's how palmistry came to be, and how it got to the European side of, or the Western Hemisphere, was through the silk trade. This art form basically traveled, and it came palm reading or palmists became more common in the 14th century, like around the medieval period. So,
all right. What significance does palm reading have in your own personal culture?
Palm reading was very, very dominant towards early part of the culture, because the priests, the high priests, were the people who knew how to do this, and this was like a way that people used to go and take advice from very high priests and leaders about their everyday life.
So it's kind of like an esteemed art form kind of thing. Okay, interesting. So for you personally, is this something that is more culturally based, or something that you just kind of happen to pick up?
It's just something I happened to pick up. The way I picked this up was that I found out my dad used to do this, or my dad knows how to do this. So I got interested, and I started reading about it, and that's how I know how to read palms.
Okay, and so for how long have you been doing this?
For about 4 years now.
Okay, wow. So do you think that this is more of like a mystical kind of thing, or is it more like scientifically based or like a logical process?
It's actually a bit of both. Like if you're talking about the mystic side, is if you do believe in this kind of stuff, you definitely need that kind of attitude towards this. But it's a lot to do with the scientific base, because the information that, like, this is not just something that you come up with. You have to learn this, and the way that palmistry came to be was by people being curious and taking a lot of data over a long time. And so I think it's a bit of both.
All right, so you're saying it's more of like a collection of data than something that you just like are innately born with,
Right.
knowing how to do it. Okay. Wow, this was awesome. Thank you so much, Tanay. I appreciate your help.